Europe goes from a Judeo-Christian Europe with 1,000 years of Catholic cathedrals, Protestant Reformation, and Jewish neighborhoods, to a secular Europe with the French Revolution, free sex, anything goes, LGBT, got to tolerate this, tolerate that, tolerate everything. And then finally, into Europe comes these Sharia Muslims, and they say, well, you got to tolerate us too, and they end up overpopulating.
How you doing? This is Sahar TV, and in today's video, we will watch a lecture of the Islamic history leading up to today, and why you shouldn't look away because what happened in the past will happen in the future. Watch this.
So, 624 AD, the Meccans send 1,000 soldiers to protect their caravan, and Muhammad with 300 defeats 1,000 at the Battle of Badra, and 624 AD. So this amazing victory, outnumbered 3-1, convinces Muhammad to be a military leader, and he fights in 66 battles and raids, killing an estimated 3,000 people in the next 8 years before he dies. And so he goes from being a religious leader to a political leader to a military leader. So there's freedom for all religions in America. But Islam is not just a religion, because Muhammad was not just a religious leader. He was also a political leader and a military leader. So a mosque is a religious building, a political building, and a military building. Bowing to Mecca is a religious bowing and a political military pledging of allegiance to another capital. It's a whole different system. It's like if a gang comes in and like an MS-13 and they decide they want to take over a neighborhood, they have their laws and their rules. So 624, there's some more raids and more battles. 625, more raids and battles, and 626. And then 627 is the Battle of the Trench. And the Meccans send 10,000 soldiers to Medina, and Muhammad digs trenches all around the city, which renders the cavalry of the Meccans useless. You can't charge your horse to cross a field full of potholes and trenches, they'll break their legs. So Muhammad goes to some of the Meccans at night, bribes them, they slip away. Some of the other Meccans at night, threatens them, they slip away, sort of the bribe or the bullet. And then it gets freezing cold for a week, and the rest of the Meccans lose heart and retreat. And Muhammad considers this a victory that his enemies were cowards and unable to subdue him. And then he has some more battles at Khaybar and attacks and so forth. And but what happened to those 3 Jewish clans that let Muhammad in? Well, the Banu Qaynuqa, Muhammad accused them of violating the treaty, declared it void, and expelled them. The other 2 clans stood back because they didn't like it. They had Trump derangement syndrome. They're like, I hate that clan. They had it coming to them, right? And so now there's only 2 Jewish clans. And so then Muhammad accuses the second one of violating their treaty and voids it and expels them. And the big Jewish clan stands back. They were always competition for me. I just hate them. And now there's only 1 Jewish clan. And by the way, it went into the DNA of Islam. It's called hudna, when we make treaties until you get strong enough to disregard them. We're seeing that we're trying to make a treaty with Iran right now, and it's really hard to pin them down. That's because of this. The last Jewish tribe, the Banu Qurayza. The Sahih al-Bukhari, when Allah's apostle returned on the day of Battle of the Trench, he put down his arms and took a bath. Then Jibreel, that spirit whose head was covered with dust, came to him saying, you have put down your arms. By Allah, I have not put down my arms yet. Allah's apostle said, where go now? The Jibreel said, this way, pointing toward the tribe, the Banu Qurayza, the last Jewish tribe. And so the Bukhari says, Said said, I judge that their warriors should be killed and the children and women should be taken as captives. The prophet said, you have given a judgment similar to Allah's. So they surround him for 25 days. When the last Jewish tribe surrenders, he brings them into the market and removes their head. My wife's always telling me, don't get into the gross stuff. Anyway, so within 5 years of Muhammad coming as an immigrant into the Jewish city of Medina, there's not a Jew left in the city of Medina. They were chased out, killed, or enslaved. So when Mandami, a few months ago, said, Islam is a religion built on a narrative of migration. The story of the Hijra, that's the Hijra, that's the Muhammad's trip to Medina. The story of the Hijra reminds us that the Prophet Muhammad was a stranger too, who fled Mecca and was welcomed in Medina. And 5 years later, there was not a Jew left in Medina. They were chased out, killed, or enslaved. So it's a 3-step process. Like Caesar's 3 steps, Veni, Vidi, Vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. It's immigrate, increase, eliminate. Immigrate into a host country as a religious refugee. Increase the number of your followers amongst the minority neighborhoods, and then you have random outbreaks of violence, knifings, acid attacks, and so forth, and the previous inhabitants of the neighborhood no longer feel safe, and they move out and they take over the neighborhood, right?
It looks incredibly similar to what we're seeing right now in Europe, in the UK, in France, in Sweden, in Belgium. They immigrate as religious refugees, then they increase their size, more and more people come, and when the time is right, people will start leaving their country, making those countries Muslim majority.
Immigrate, increase, eliminate. I was doing an interview with Ryan Hilfenbein of Liberty University, and he reworded it, immigrate, populate, dominate. So they can come in and have 4 wives and put them in apartments and tell them to go down to the welfare office and say the husband's not around, and they get welfare checks. And the guy visits the wives, and the more children they have, the larger the welfare checks get. And but it's interesting how we took advantage of the political division between these 3 Jewish clans. And again, that went into the DNA. They'll always see that the different, and will help your party against the other party, not realizing they will use any party as long as it advances their agenda. Now, there's 2 sets of verses in the Quran. The ones he gets in Mecca are a little more moderate. They're called weak verses. And the ones he gets in Medina are more political and military. They're called strong verses. By way of comparison, in the Bible, we have 2 sets of verses. We have the Old Testament with some violence, Moses and Joshua wiping out tribes. New Testament, Jesus and the apostles never killed anybody. And so what do we say? The later example is the one we're going to try to imitate. It's the same way in Islam, only in reverse. Their peaceful verses came first when Muhammad was a religious leader in Mecca, and they're superseded by the later verses that are political and military.
The Jews themselves don't believe in the later verses. They don't believe in the New Testament, so we have to follow the only Testament, in our opinion, which is the Torah. But if you take a look at this, you can realize that when Muhammad was peaceful in Mecca, when he was still in Mecca before he was banished to Medina, barely anybody converted to Islam, maybe 150 people. But once he became more aggressive, more violent, with more power, he became a lot more influential. Nearly 10,000 people converted to Islam in the following years because of this aggression. That's why when people say Islam is a religion of peace, that is BS. Islam grew on the aspect of dominance, on the aspect of power, on the aspect of conquering, on the aspect of war. So stop lying to us. Hey, just a small break before you continue. I'm an independent creator, and if you'd like to support my work and support this YouTube channel, please make sure to support me on Buy Me Coffee. The link is attached down below. It helps me tremendously, and every single donation is appreciated. Thank you so much. Let's continue with the video.
And so Muhammad dies. And the life of Muhammad says, the messenger of Allah called Zainab, did you poison the lamb shoulder? She said, you killed my father, my uncle, my husband. You took from my people what you took. I said to myself, if he is a prophet, he will be informed. And so Sahih al-Bukhari, the prophet, in his ailment in which he died, used to say, oh, Aisha, I still feel the pain caused by the food I ate at Khaybar. And this time I feel that my aorta is being cut out from that poison. And so within 5 years of Muhammad's death, every pre-existing culture in Arabia is conquered. And then it has, again, a tribal gang aspect to it where you're free to join, you just can't leave, right? You can have young brides, you get part of the booty, and Muhammad just promised booty in the next life. So the goal is a one world government called the Caliphate, led by one Muslim leader called the Caliph, political, religious, military. So there's 2 ways of advancing Islam, the fast way and the slow way. The fast way is through the sword, jihad. The slow way is through immigration, called dawah. They actually have a word for it, D-A-W-A-H, dawah. And so Henry Ford did not like unions. And so he had an idea of bringing over Arabs, Yemeni, Syrian, from Lebanon, because they would not join unions. And so they started coming over. And they would work hard, and they would be nice, and they wouldn't join unions. And so you see they actually have videos on him specifically bringing Arabs from Yemen over to work in the car factories there in Detroit for $5 a day. And so they came over, they worked hard, and they were nice. People said that they work hard, they don't join unions, they're nice, let more in. More come in, and they work hard and they're nice, and more come in. And then finally, they get an imam. And so in 1921, the very first imams came to America. The Sunni Imam Hussein Karub and the Shia Imam Sheikh Khalid Bazi. And they built the first purpose-built mosque in America near the Ford factory, Highland Park, Detroit. And there's pictures of it, and they expanded, and I've seen it, I've been there. And so now, 1928, the Muslim Brotherhood is formed. Now, this is after World War I. There's a whole history that I talk about in my book. But World War I, you have leaders in the Middle East wanting to be westernized. You have Ataturk in Turkey, and he's dressing in business suits. And Abdullah was king of Jordan, and he's nice to the Jews, and Faisal. And the Arab Muslim world is becoming more westernized, but the Muslim Brotherhood doesn't like it. And so they formed, and they have a two-step plan based on the two cities Muhammad lived in. The Muslim Brotherhood would say, first, you immigrate into a country as a religious refugee like Muhammad came in from Mecca, and then you transition and become a political militant Muslim, and you assassinate. And so that's what happened in these different countries. The Meccan faiths immigrate as a religious refugee, take advantage of the host countries' welfare and tolerance, and then you switch, gain political power, implement Sharia, and then have random violence to drive out previous inhabitants. And they would do this all these different countries, and as they assassinated Abdullah in Jordan, they tried assassinating Ataturk, they assassinated Anwar Sadat in Egypt. And then here's a Fox News article, members of the first U.S. Muslim majority city council. Today we show the Polish. So they came into Detroit, the Hamtramck area, and then they increased and they drove out the previous inhabitants. And now they have calls to prayer 5 times a day in Hamtramck. And so they guilt-trip Christians into being tolerant of them, yet when they come in, they don't extend the same tolerance to the infidels. And culturally, you study enough history, you see trends. Europe goes from a Judeo-Christian Europe with 1,000 years of Catholic cathedrals, Protestant Reformation, and Jewish neighborhoods, to a secular Europe with the French Revolution, free sex, anything goes, LGBT, got to tolerate this, tolerate that, tolerate everything. And then finally, into Europe comes these Sharia Muslims, and they say, well, you got to tolerate us too, and they end up overpopulating, right? And so the number one name for newborns in Europe is, guess what? Muhammad. And so there's a 1,400-year track record of seeing this expansion. And it's broken into several phases. First is an Arab, then Persian, Egyptian phase, then a Turkish, and India's Mughals in northern India. Indonesia has the Nusantara. They mixed in a little Buddhist traditions, and so they became a little more moderate. And then the Dutch took over Indonesia. And whenever an imam would speak out violence against the Dutch would arrest the imam. Another one would speak out, and they would arrest that imam and arrest that. Till pretty soon the imam said, let's not talk violence. And it went into their culture. And so in Indonesia, they have a more tolerant version of Islam than the rest of the world.
Guys, this is a fascinating video, and I'll try to find the full thing to attach it in the link below. But insane. Muslims in today's world, not all of them, the Islamists of them, are trying to infiltrate Western countries. Some of them try to pretend to be refugees, despite the fact that the majority of them leave their women and children in their home countries. If you're actually asylum seekers, bring your children and women with you. But I don't know, the whole thing seems a bit bizarre to me. And then once they are the minority, they bring more people, they build infrastructure, madrasas, schools, Islamic centers. And then once you have something established, more and more people can immigrate. Once that number grows, the original inhabitants are forced to leave. And that's how you do a takeover. And we are currently witnessing the beginning of a major takeover that will probably end in the next 50, 100, 150 years. Incredibly unfortunate to see. This is the reality we live in, and we have to fight this. Speak about this. Go out to the streets and protest. That's the only way to reverse what's happening in Europe. I'll try to find the full thing and attach it down below. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. If you'd like to watch more of my stuff, please check out my channel down below. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification button so you can be notified every time I upload new content. If you'd like to support me and the channel financially, you can do that using Buy Me Coffee or Patreon down in the links below. Also, we now have a Discord that you can join down in the link below. And now you can become a YouTube member and enjoy specific YouTube perks. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.